Well, hello everyone. Lane Nordlund with the Western Ag Network, joined by Russell Nemetz and rancher Greg Putnam. And today finds us in our test kitchen, we could call it, or just my kitchen at home, just east of Great Falls, Montana. But during the Montana Pro Rodeo Circuit Finals, our friends at Mishima Reserve proudly brought you our coverage from this year's event. And they also sent us some great product. Greg, you join us here today. Little Belt Cattle Company is the ranch operation just on the other side of the Little Belt. So we're on the north side here today. But Greg, let's talk about Mishima Reserve, American Wagyu. What consists of American Wagyu with the Mishima product?
Yeah, so we started producing cattle for Mishima Reserve about 3 years ago, and we started breeding those Wagyu bulls to our heifers, and that is really our heifer program and how we take our Angus heifers and expose them to those Wagyu bulls and get a really great calf product and also set that heifer up to come into our herd and into our Angus program. And I really feel like that program sets that heifer up for success to stay in the herd. And we've just had a great relationship with them. It's been a great working experience, and I really love the product. And I think that the Wagyu program for us really complements our Angus program and really allows us to kind of take that really quality Angus, foundation that we've built and almost diversify it a little bit and just kind of open up a whole nother area that we can market those calves. But also, I think from a performance perspective, it really does great for us as our heifer development program.
Maybe tell our viewers a little bit about yourself too, because you had another career before you became involved with the cattle industry.
Sure. So I was a U.S. Navy SEAL for just about 10 years and worked at a number of different commands throughout Naval Special Warfare and just had an amazing opportunity and really just a great career there. And we did that, like I said, for about 10 years. And then my wife and I, we had 3 kids in the process and just kind of were looking at, are we going to continue with this? Or we really wanted to get back to Montana. We really wanted to raise our family here. And, production agriculture was not something that was ultimately kind of brought up when I got out of the military and was something I came into kind of just through friends that were in the industry. And, I think a lot of people, almost struggle to find that next thing. And you come out of this really kind of high intensity, very purpose driven career path that you spend. I mean, I remember being a little kid and wanting to be a Navy SEAL, and then you do it. And then when that career path kind of, you go, where do I go next? And a lot of folks getting out of the military kind of struggle with finding that next right fit. And fortunately for me, not right out of the gate, but not too far after, and with the help of a lot of great mentors and friends, really when I started doing working in ranching, I really kind of found that right, felt like I found the right puzzle piece again. And it's something we've really encouraged more veterans to look at, and we've hosted a lot of veteran internships. We work with MSU, trying to find kind of the pathway that people can get into this. And I remember when I got out, people would say, oh, you should look at finance or tech. And I don't want to do either of those. Those sound terrible. And they were. And I wish somebody had said, this agriculture, it's such a great, there's so many parallels between agriculture and the military. And I truly believe that the food system in America is a national security, component. And it's a system that we all rely upon, just like we all rely upon the, security of our U.S. military. We also rely upon our farm and ranchers to produce food into that system. And it's just something that, again, I that purpose and really feel like you're doing something that impacts the greater good. And again, there's a very low percentage of people, just like in the military, that are in farm and ranching that provide this amazing opportunity really for everybody. And it's something I'm just super proud to be part of, and our partnerships with Mishima and our Angus partnerships really allow us to do that and really make a great career out of it, and something I would really encourage a lot of other veterans to look at.
What was that like, though, taking those skill sets and that critical thinking that you developed over the years in the military and comparing that to having an operation just on the other side of where we're at here on the south side of Little Belt Mountains, when you're looking at planning, rotational grazing, let's just walk through that and just the education process that has gone through that too, because it can be a little intimidating stepping in as a first generation rancher. Let's just talk about that learning process as well.
Sure. That learning process, I think it is. I mean, the barrier of entry is to come into agriculture where you haven't been doing it your whole life and you haven't had that pass down. It's a huge challenge. And it's funny, I think more people said to me when I started, admitting like, hey, this is what I really want to do. I was like, that's never going to work. And more people probably told me that than people told me that's not going to work going into the SEAL teams. And, I'll be the first to admit, everybody thinks that every Navy SEAL is, 6'5", 220 pounds. And here I was, I was like 5'7", 165 pounds. Like, I could play sports and stuff. I was not an Olympic athlete by any means. And you start telling people, yeah, I want to do this thing with this very, high attrition rate. It's always the people, though, who have never done it themselves. And I remember my brother had a friend who was actually a Navy SEAL, and I remember I called him up and I said, this is what I want to do. And he said, oh, you can totally do it. And I remember the first people that encouraged me to, when I first started to say is, how could I actually get into this and start a career in this space? And, luckily for me, my business partner and friend and SEAL team brother, Tim Sheehy, we were able to put this thing together. And I think probably the biggest thing is that you learn in SEAL selection training is that there's going to be setbacks. I mean, they will find the one thing. If you can do 100 push-ups, they'll make you do 101. If you can do 1,000, you'll do 1,001. And you get good at being able to maneuver, I just say challenges. And they really find those people that don't allow setbacks to stop them. And I'd say, Tim and all the different businesses he's done and us in this business, we looked at it as a challenge, and we looked at finding the right mentors. No different than in the military. We go, I want to be like that guy. And when you show up, I mean, we joke, and when you show up to the SEAL teams after 2 years of training, they let you know immediately that you're the least trained Navy SEAL on the face of the earth, according to the guys who've been doing it for a long time, and you're affectionately referred to as an FNG. I think everybody can figure out what the F means. The NG is new guy. And we kind of approached it. I approached this, getting into agriculture is the same way. And, when you're a new guy, you generally have the foundation to be successful, but you really have to leave kind of your ego at the door. And I will ride up to guys at a branding and be like, can you watch me rope and tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can look like you? And they'll usually go, yeah, you need to do this and this. They've already been paying attention. And just like and I've told this to people before, I mean, is there no worse feeling than when you show up to something with like brand new clothes and gear, and you stand out as the new guy and you think, oh, nobody's going to notice. And the minute that people have been doing it, that are professionals have been doing it, they can look at you and go, but if you really want to learn, the amount of people that will actually help you. And, our partnership with Stovall Ranches and Turk Stovall, again, there were so many people that were so encouraging. And there was also a lot of people that were discouraging. But just like the SEAL teams, a lot of those folks were people that had actually never done it themselves and ultimately didn't have the courage to try and didn't have, whatever that is to say, hey, this is something I really want to do. What is that path forward in figuring it out? And I'll say there wasn't a lot of instruction for if it was like, hey, you came out of the military, I want to go in this direction. How do you do it? And that's kind of what we're trying to do now with really saying like, hey, this is the system that, has worked for us. And just like anything, it's hard work and it's the desire to learn and it's the desire to say like, hey, I really want to do this. And this is the same thing as the military, and if people want to aspire to be into, special operations, it can't be because you want to tell people that's what you want to do. It can't be because you want to tell girls at the bar that, you're a Navy SEAL. And it can't be because you can't go into production agriculture because, you want to dress like a cowboy or wear the hat. You really have to want to do that. And I remember like my desire when I joined the Navy was I really wanted to be a Navy SEAL. Not because I cared if anybody knew that's what I did, but I really wanted to do that job at that level. And I feel very much the same about this.
Well, thankfully, Greg, that rest assured, both Lane and I were once upon a time FNGs ourselves.
Sure.
and we've miraculously survived this farm broadcasting industry to be right here in this kitchen with you, and just an incredible opportunity. So with that all said then, I mean, tell us how you got involved with Mishima and what sort of opportunities, I guess, exist for cattle producers near and far.
Sure. So when we got Little Belt Cattle Company started up in 2020, and we were really just looking at, starting a new program really. And one nice thing, I guess, is that we had the opportunity to look at all these just amazing, legacy ranches and what they were doing and what they were doing well, and really kind of cherry pick what we wanted to do ourselves. And so Stovall Ranches had been producing for Mishima. As we started building that Angus program, we really started to kind of look at, and really through their recommendation of what they had been doing. And here was, pretty hardcore Angus folks that were kind of exploring this new, market really. And it's a market I think that's grown a lot. I think it's a market that there's a lot of desire for. And in that kind of American market, in American space, there's pretty big, kind of players now. And just so as we looked at how we were going to really build out this kind of, in my opinion, as well-rounded as a program as we could, the Wagyu thing really fit. And, for us, it really wasn't changing anything. It was just kind of starting and trying something. And it really just worked great.
Now let's talk about, obviously this is a crossbred product that we're talking with your operation, the Angus component of it, bred to Wagyu bulls, and that's what Mishima Reserve really helps producers line up, providing the bull or the semen, and then you provide those cows, and then they have a premium buyback program. And that's what we're all about in the cattle business. We got to pay our bills. And I know you're not standing here advocating like you got to go full Wagyu. This is just one of those diversification tools that you have in not only with your fence employers, but more in that looking further ahead to how do we stay profitable?
Exactly. And I think you look at in a lot of other business, or if you talk to a financial advisor or something, they say, oh, you need to diversify your, whatever you're doing. And I think for us, it's a little bit of diversification within the markets that you can play in. Again, I think I feel very much that it's enhancing to our Angus program and foundationally that Angus genetic line and really trying to build a cattle herd that is, I'm going to call it kind of performance minded on what are those carcasses grading at, the combination of the two, and really utilizing, those heifers with those bulls to set them up for success. And I love the fact that you don't have to go into this thing all in and say, oh, we're making this total change. You can do it in a way, and they've set it up in a way where you can AI those, you can lease bulls, you can work towards buying bulls, and that's what we did. We didn't own any bulls until last year after we kind of tested the program. And I think the premiums are there, and I think the product is really there, and I think the demand for this product. And again, I think it's great because they have a great kind of distribution and a program that allows us as producers to come into that, but they also really appreciate the producers. And as more customers want to know not only where their food is coming from, but who it's coming from, the producers, I feel like that they've brought in, there's a real partnership there, and they've been great to work with on, there's never a question on how we're going to be able to move those calves, and they're very, very supportive as a program to the producers, and you definitely feel like it's a partnership more than just you figuring it out on your own.
That is some very good news for producers, because a lot of times they are. I mean, we've only learned what we learned from our dad and our grandfather and his grandfather, and before we know it, we're 4, 5, 6 generations deep in this industry, or maybe first or second in your case, and we've never really learned how to adapt to change.
And the hardest thing,
or opportunity,
and if
could
dad,
be sitting right in front of us.
If dad and grandpa have done it for 100 years, and now you're at the helm and you're running the ship, do you really want to make a change that may or may not work? What I like about this is that it allows you to kind of test it. You could run your heifers on this for 1 year and say, this didn't work for me, and you're right back into your Angus program. And the one thing from a production standpoint is, we sell all of our our cross heifers and steers, and so you're still keeping 100% pure genetic cow herd. And what we basically do is take our 2 coming 3-year-olds and we breed them back into our Angus program, and it just really works well as kind of just this complementary element. But I think it's hard to make those changes, and what I really like about this is that you're not jeopardizing, you're not having to spend dollars that you basically wouldn't spend anyway, and it gives you just a really, just a little bit different way to, and you could utilize that, I guess, more throughout your cow herd. Like I said, we run it with our heifer program and our heifer development, and that's what we found that to be kind of that sweet spot.
And Greg, we probably have a lot of producers out there thinking, you know what, that crossbred calf is going to be probably a little smaller than a traditional Angus calf that comes out and is marketed. So let's just talk about that marketing aspect of it, with Mishima coming and buying those calves, getting them finished, and then of course coming to this really, really good looking packaging and that marbling. I really want to get to cooking this because it looks so good. But can you walk us through that too? Because I know that's probably a question that a lot of our producers are asking. Like, obviously it will be a lighter calf than if we're just weaning and marketing an Angus calf.
Sure, and you're absolutely right. I think with the premium programs that they've set up, it really helps to offset that, just that pound difference. But, the other thing that I really like is that if you've built a really strong, kind of genetic Angus herd, and that's based on carcass performance to some capacity, you're going to get paid. They actually do a really good job, I'd say, of like making their premiums kind of specific to the quality that they're getting. And I really do feel like that program does help offset that. And the nice thing is they'll buy these calves. You kind of have the same options you would in other programs where, for us, we'll back on those calves and then, potentially grow them a little bit. And, they let you as a producer kind of decide when's the right timing for you to sell those calves. And like I said, they've been great about, there's never been a problem, with where those calves are going to go. And like I said, they very much are partners with you and really do work with you on the timing that works well for your operation. And I will say, you have to, we have finished some cattle. They've finished some cattle with us at our feed yard. And although those Wagyus stay on feed and finish a little bit longer, I think the end result and what you get for those really, it really makes up for just the difference in weight and time. In that, economically for us, this has been, very competitive with our Angus program.
Well, let's get it out of that
Let's
package.
do it.
I tell you what, I've been looking at these for a few days. They shipped some up just for this cooking segment, and the wind is blowing a little bit here in north central Montana, so we're going to stay inside.
Standard.
The welcoming committee, as we call it here in this part of the world. But I guess let's get it out of the package.
And the one thing I will say, none of us being chefs, if we can make this look and taste good, anybody can do this at home. And I know everybody has their different ways that they want to cook steak. We're going to keep it pretty, down the middle of the lane here today. And let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. Let's step back and watch the master work here.
So
The seal has a knife.
Yeah, be careful. Probably cut myself. So again, what I really like about these, you can tell just the marbling that you get on this, kind of, and you'll see these look very different than just your stand. If you get 100% pure Wagyu, that necessarily, has a marketplace. But I think just this very well marbled, but still very,
Well,
muscle.
and just beef 101, Greg.
Yep.
A lot of consumers out there, they might go to the meat case, obviously, and if they're not fully educated on buying a very nice cut of beef like this one, they're going to look at something like this and like, oh, that thing has just got a ton of fat in it.
Yep.
But to the contrary, that you want that marbling in something like this, correct?
Correct. That fat is flavor, right? And you can see these kind of veins of that coming through there. And one of the interesting things that was new to me that I learned recently was just genetically wise with that Wagyu addition is that, the difference of the saturated fats and things, are more on line with like a salmon or like an olive oil. And so, I guess what they would call like more like your healthy fats, and you actually get more of those. And again, I'm not a nutritionist, but you can look some of this stuff up, and it's just a pretty interesting thing. But no, you really want to see those, and that's how they grade. Anybody that isn't real familiar with grading carcasses, when you look at that ribeye cut, the marbling is what's going to determine the grading for the entire carcass. And so, really that higher quality, more premium beef that you're looking for has that marbling through it, and ultimately that is where you get a lot of flavor.
It sure does. Didn't mean to interrupt your prep work here.
So we're going to go ahead and just go right down the middle of the road here with salt and pepper. I think the quality of this meat really stands alone on itself. You don't need a lot of addition. So I like to do a good salt base here, and you can really see it. That salt's going to kind of give you just a nice crust on the outside. And then same thing here. I like to do just a decent amount. You don't have to get crazy, but you definitely want to get a good coating there on the outside. Some people like to put some olive oil or something on there. You give it a pat and it'll stick pretty good. We'll do the same on the other side.
A little better than MREs, aren't they?
A little bit better than MREs, yeah. The funny thing with MREs is that there's a whole trading aspect that some people aren't aware of, where when I would open MRE, there'd be like almost this whole thing of what do you have, and you try to piece together a better overall package. But if you got stuck with the egg omelet, not a lot of people wanted to trade. You were in a tight spot.
That's right.
All right, so we got some salt and pepper going, and now we're gonna take this and we're gonna do it like Lane said. We're gonna cook it inside. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a healthy chunk of butter here and come into our hot pan, get that going. Now, some people add some herbs or whatever into this, which you can totally do if you're feeling that way. So what I like to do is I melt that butter down, and then once that pan's nice and hot, we're gonna take this nice ribeye steak right here, and we're gonna go into the pan, and we'll probably give that on a higher heat for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll kind of see how that's cooking. And your other option here is you can always sear that outside, and then you could go into the oven with the whole pan and steak to reach that desired temperature. We're gonna go for a medium rare here today. I think that's a good place to be on these rib steaks, and see how we do.
It's already smelling delicious.
Oh, butter, beef, nothing better.
You had me at butter.
That's right.
And then you really had me at pepper.
Once you start getting, So we've been here on this side for about 3 minutes. We'll go ahead and flip this over if I can get it. There we go. So you can see we have a nice sear on there. That salt and pepper really makes a nice crust, and you can see that fat really starts to melt. And it doesn't matter if you put this on the grill, if you put this on a Traeger, you could do it, cast iron on the stovetop into the oven. You can do a reverse sear. There's all sorts of ways you can do that really gets that fat. And what I love about, this Wagyu product is that fat really renders out and makes this just kind of really, really nice.
And that might be one of those misconceptions, Greg, is a lot of people think, well, it's going to shrink up because it has so much marbling. That ribeye hasn't shrunk up
not
at
at
all.
Same size.
Nope. And just, again, making it'll make you look good as a cook, because the beef stands alone on itself. You don't have to get super fancy with it. You can, make this for your buddies, and when they come over, they're going to think that you're, should be running your own cooking show.
Well, a few more segments like this, and you just might.
Hey, there you go. We'll see it. You haven't tasted it yet. That's the real key.
Oh, there is no doubt in my mind this is going to be delicious.
I mean, it's got everything it needs, like you said, salt and pepper, a little butter, and meat that stands alone on its own through quality, and can't go too wrong.
Yeah. Plus, the three of us and our photographer, Paul Humphrey, I mean, that's the other part of this. You have 4 eager and hungry
That's all it takes,
participants just standing by.
Yeah, if you let them get hungry enough, anything you make will taste halfway decent. All right, so we have both sides seared up nice, and like I said, sometimes if you go a little bit longer on one side, you have to, you just kind of gauge it. We're shooting for a nice medium rare, so about 100 and 130 to 135 internal temperature. And yeah, sometimes you can let these sit for a minute or just get right into them. See how we did.
We should probably let it sit just a little bit.
Just a few minutes would probably not be a bad idea.
The Beef It's Once for Dinner kitchen executive chefs always encourage you to do
Yeah.
that.
Let it rest, and while it's doing that, it's actually bringing some of those like juices and stuff back into it. And I think the biggest thing is if you're spending dollars on buying really premium cuts of beef, you want to do everything possible, because us producers have done everything possible to get it to this point, and sometimes it's on you to get it to that point. And do yourself a favor and you know, do it right, because it's going to pay
Well,
off.
that brings up a good point. I mean, while we're waiting for that beef to rest just a few minutes, I mean, there are a tremendous amount of resources out there for new type chefs or you know, people that are wanting to do more at home in their own kitchens and prepare meals like this. And the one that comes to my mind is just your state beef council. I mean, we're here in Montana, but you know, there's lots and lots of state beef councils across America that have specific resources like this. And we've been mentioning Turk Stovall, and you know, for the past couple of years, the Montana Beef Council has done segments on how to cook beef correctly with Turk, Cowboy in the Kitchen segments.
Yeah.
So, you can definitely visit their website at montanabeefcouncil.org for more information there.
And I think the cool thing is, I mean, a lot of these products, you know, these really high quality products, where, you know, you would find them sometimes in stores and different things, but they're readily available to just kind of your general consumer who really likes to cook, where now you can, you know, have your friends over to your house and have that, you know, real high quality steak experience just by the products that are now available more widespread than they used to be.
Well, let's cut.
Let's do it.
All right, well, let's cut into this. Our noses have really been enjoying this the last few minutes, but again, this is really one of those great products that we have here today. Mishima Reserve American Wagyu beef, crossbred with some high-quality Angus cattle, and look at that. Just, oh, I'm looking forward to this right
I'm
now,
not even
Russell.
sure you need a knife.
I actually, this is cutting so well right now. The plate actually is inhibiting me more than anything, so I had to bring out the big carving fork here for us too, because it had to be official. Because, alrighty, and I think, guys, this is gonna look so good. We'll just do a quick cut across there. If I would quit cutting the actual knife or fork, we'll just take quick bites out of this. And friends, I really wish you could smell this, and I really wish you could taste it, but you can taste it if you go check out Mishima Reserve online.
Thanks, sir.
There you go. All right.
All right, let's see how we did. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh my gosh. Melts in your mouth. I'm not kidding you, right?
That's
It
good.
totally melts in your mouth.
Perfect medium rare steak for us here, ribeye. And like I said, I have heard a lot of people say that steak will shrink up just having a little bit of Wagyu. That it didn't.
And you can see where, you know, like we were talking about with some of the marbling in there, you know, in, like you said, oh, is that going to be this fattier cut? Well, you can see how all of that really, in just a short cook, you know, basically melts into that thing, and you can taste it when you're eating that.
Well, as we kind of wrap things up here, Greg, just remind folks at home, I mean, Lane has been mentioning it through the segment, but I mean, truly this is an opportunity for cattle producers, not just here in Montana, but really near and far. Other cattle producers can realize real, you know, opportunities with their bottom line by introducing, you know, Mishima Reserve Wagyu genetics into their program. And then on the flip side, consumers have a great eating opportunity just waiting for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, again, it's kind of a win-win, and I think there's a strong demand for these really high-quality cuts now, and I think Mishima Reserve is a great program that, you know, really, again, as a partner with the producer that is there to help you be successful as you're helping them be successful. And like any good partnership, it's really got to be good for everybody. And really, I think, as we can all attest, the end consumer and the product that they're getting is you know, second to none.
Well, I can tell you firsthand, This was delicious. And again, a big thank you to our friends at Mishima Reserve for helping bring our pre-rodeo coverage to you during the Montana Pro Rodeo Circuit Finals, but also just providing opportunities for producers out there to help bring profitability back to the top producers' minds, because sustainability, it's not just environmental, it's also financial as well. And that's one of those big keywords we're talking about in agriculture. And Greg, thanks for joining us. Thanks for sharing part of your story. And thank you for your service. And good luck in the years ahead. I know it's not easy jumping into agriculture, but I follow you online. Follow Little Belt Cattle Company on Instagram. Great content. And for those first generation producers out there, I know Greg would be a great resource for you as well. And with that, Greg, thanks for joining us here in my kitchen.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. That was great.
All right, friends. Again, as we mentioned, Mishima Reserve. It's a great opportunity for a little more diversification out on your operation for consumers. Check out MishimaReserve.com. They will ship this right to your door as well. That will do it from the test kitchen at the Nordlund residence for the Western Ag Network. I'm Nordlund on behalf of Russell Nemetz and Greg Putnam here today.